Charlottesville and then to Pittsburgh within the next decade. We think that it's possible. Rails-to-Trails Conservancy is a national organization with over 100,000 members across the country. We've been around for more than 30 years, and we've seen the rail trail movement grow from just a few small trails in the Midwest, a few hundred miles maybe in the 60s and 70s, now to more than 22,000 miles across the country. And West Virginia boasts more than 550 miles of rail trail. About 25 years ago, Rails-to-Trails Conservancy completed this comprehensive rail corridor assessment. So it's a statewide look at what exists, what existed at the time for trail conversion. There were 12 projects in this study that kind of rose to the top as the most likely to be developed as trail. And of those 12, 6 of them are now trails that we use and love today, including the North Bend, including the Mon River Trails system, including other states trails in the state like the Greenbrier River Trail. Yay! And I'm looking over at Peggy Pings because I know she is, as we recognize and take a step back to recognize all the people that have played a large role in helping to bring communities together to make sure that these networks and systems are complete. People like Peggy, thank you, has worked tirelessly through her career to connect people and really get us energized and organized to take this to the next level. So Rails-to-Trails Conservancy really believes in the transformative power of trail networks, and we're invested in the Industrial Heartland Trails Coalition and the P2P as one of 8 signature Trail Nation projects across the country. These projects bring life to RTC's vision of trail networks at the center of our communities and of our lives. As I said, we've been supporting West Virginia rail trail development for more than 25 years and have always seen the potential for regional and statewide trail networks here. It's a state that is really rich in this resource, and it can become a preeminent trail destination. And as somebody who was born and raised here in this state, went to WVU, used the Mon River Trail system as something else to do other than getting in trouble, right? I so appreciate what the trail system here has given to me and to so many of my friends and family. Connecting these well-loved trails in north central West Virginia will really begin to unlock a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the region, a world-class destination rail trail, one of the longest in the country. So by closing these few short gaps in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, we are about to have the 4th longest rail trail in the country, longer than the Great Allegheny Passage. The Great Allegheny Passage has given us a really wonderful blueprint for what's possible when we connect trails to communities and when we develop trail towns along them to really capture the benefits of trails. So we really look to the gap for inspiration. We also don't have to look very far to see how trails have impacted our local communities and economy. Last year, RTC produced an economic impact study on the Mon River Trail system, and we found that more than 250,000 trail users contribute $6 million annually to the Morgantown region. And if you consider that that trail system is primarily used by locals, we've got a lot more to capture if we're doing more to get people to visit our communities, to come and stay overnight. Imagine how much more of an impact we could have. So our study shows that this vision is really close at hand, and we're committed to supporting local efforts to fill the gaps and help communities along the P2P capture its many benefits. We're here today to reflect on the progress of community rail trail development, take a closer look at this exciting opportunity within West Virginia and beyond, and hear from supporters who have already shown their commitment to this work. And we're going to ask you to join us in the journey ahead. So with that introduction, I'd like to turn it over to Kent Spellman. He is one of our fearless leaders on the ground here and is working closely with local partners and with Rails-to-Trails Conservancy and others to achieve this vision. Kent has also been working in the rail trail world for more than 30 years as a co-founder of the North Bend Rail Trail. He was, one of the people that really helped to spark rail trail development in the state of West Virginia. And his work continues here with us today. So he's going to give us a little look back into the past of this corridor, and then we'll take a look forward.
So I grew up in the 60s, early 70s. There's that favorite Grateful Dead slogan that says, "What a long, strange trip it's been." I'm going to modify that. What a long, strange trail it's been. 30 years ago, a guy walked into my construction office in Harrisville, West Virginia, and he said, "I need your help on a little project." Note the words, little project. That guy was Dick Bias. He'd grown up in West Virginia. He spent his working career as a vice and narcotics cop in Washington, D.C. He retired back to West Virginia, and in 1985, CSX stopped running trains on the corridor between Parkersburg and Clarksburg. In 1987, CSX filed formal abandonment papers on 61 miles of that corridor. And Dick saw this as a huge opportunity. And he put together a team to start working on acquiring that 61 miles and converting it from this huge liability where there was dumping, there was ATV and four-wheeler abuse, there were teenagers partying in the tunnels, to turn it from a liability into a huge asset. And I was one of the suckers he recruited. He put that team together and created the North Bend Rail Trail Foundation. He had representatives from all 4 counties that were involved: Wood, Ritchie, Doddridge, and Harrison. And that group started calling CSX to see if we could acquire that 61 miles. We started writing them letters. We never got a response. Meanwhile, we were formalizing the organization and creating the North Bend Rails-to-Trails Foundation Incorporated. This was the first logo for that foundation. Interesting story about this logo. I recruited a guy in Doddridge County I knew who was sort of an amateur artist, back to the lander, old-time musician, and he designed and drew this logo. A few years later, he found himself as a senior prop and character designer for The Simpsons and worked his entire career as that prop and character designer for The Simpsons. He just retired last year. So, hey man, we have a direct connection to The Simpsons right here in northern West Virginia. Joe Wack. Joe Wack, exactly, Peggy. So we began this campaign to engage CSX and nothing happened. And what we did then is we reached out to Congressman Mollahan. And he reached out to CSX and instructed them to meet with us in his office in Washington, D.C., and that's where we started. We asked them to donate that 61 miles. They asked us to pay them $1.5 million. So we were a little bit apart on that. But thanks to Congressman Mollahan and some support from Governor Caperton and later support from Senator Byrd, we were able to negotiate that acquisition for $315,000. Senator Byrd, back when appropriations were still a thing, was able to get $315,000 to acquire that, and we donated it to the state park system. A little while later, we were able to acquire another 11 miles in Wood County to extend it to I-77 in Wood County. We realized that we couldn't open 61 miles effectively at one time, so we would open up little pilot sections. This was the first pilot section that was opened in Cairo in 1991. It was a short 3-mile section, and this was the official opening of it. You can see the dignitaries there. There's Congressman Mollahan, Commissioner of Tourism Brown off to beside Congressman Mollahan, Governor Caperton, and Senator Byrd were all there. And we had a pretty good crowd of people show up, a lot of media. It was a big deal, and that was the first section of North Bend that was opened. We then started opening other sections. So this section was in Salem. Again, Senator Byrd, Congressman Mollahan were there for that. This was a big event also, opening a pilot section in Salem. And of course, this was in Doddridge County, a section in Doddridge County that was opened. That was a much younger me in that picture. So as this was happening along the North Bend, and we began to develop the resources to surface and clear and deck the bridges and put railings on the bridges over the years, other things were happening around the state. In northern West Virginia counties, in Marion and Mon County, things were starting to happen as well. Ralph LaRue, who was head of the Marion County Parks and Recreation Commission, went to his board and said, I have an idea. We need to acquire about 16 miles of rail corridor. And he said, that board looked at me as if I had grown a second head. One of the board members picked up the master plan, the Marion County Recreation Master Plan, picked it up, threw it at Ralph, and said, I don't see anything about buying rail corridors in this. But Ralph persevered, and he said, just let me do it. Can I do it if it doesn't cost you any money? And they said, oh, well, if it doesn't cost us any money, we're good with that. And he did raise that money himself with help from many others, but it didn't come out of the McPark budget. He got a series of grants, he got donations, and he was able to make that happen. This is a section of that West Fork River Trail. If any of you have been on the West Fork River Trail, beautiful, beautiful section of trail. If you haven't been on it, get your butts out there. It's a great ride. Meanwhile, in Mon County, there was some stuff happening as well. Abandonments up there began in like 89 or 90, I think. Ella, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's about right. And construction began basically in 98 and continued until 2007. This work does not happen fast. It takes time. It takes a lot of different financial resources over the course of many years to make these trails happen and become complete. So Mon County has done the Mon River Trail north and south, and the Caperton Trail that's inside the city limits. They also have the Deckers Creek Trail, which is not directly a part of P2P, Parkersburg to Pittsburgh, but a huge asset to that corridor because it is such a lovely trail that connects in other parts of the city and the county with the P2P corridor. I want to stress some things about how this impacts things. This is a picture of the Wharf District area. There's another photo. There's another photo of that Wharf District area before the trail. You all know what it looks like now. Is it all because of the trail?
Yes.
Well, we'd like to say that. Thank you. Yes. Yes is the right answer. But it's certainly an important contributing factor because businesses locate there because they see the trail as such a huge asset. It makes their places of business more attractive to their employees and their visitors. Trails are expensive, but they're also the cheapest investment we can make with the highest return on investment. This is a trail. Looks like a trail. That's not a trail. That's not been developed. This is what that same trail looks like when it's fully developed. What an asset. What an improvement. What a wonderful place to ride your bike, to take a run, to go with your family. This work over the years has been done mostly with volunteers, let's face it. We have DOH money, we have state park investment, but volunteers have been so critical to this work consistently through all of this. There's a volunteer out on the North Bend cleaning up a section of trail where the surface connects with a newly redone bridge. Here's a group of volunteers, and I believe this is on the West Fork River Trail. Mon River Trail? Deckers. Okay, thank you. And this is a group of volunteers building the Turner Memorial Gazebo that is on the North Bend next to one of the tunnels on the North Bend near North Bend State Park. That gazebo was in memory of a state trooper who lost his life in a helicopter accident a number of years ago. He and his wife were huge North Bend Rail Trail fans. They contributed the money. We found the volunteers. West Virginia State Police were absolutely huge in making that thing happen. So what I want to stress next is that the work doesn't end. We've still got gaps to fill. We're working on that. We're making progress. Things still happen. This happened on the Mon River Trail after, it was 2011, I think Ella told me. That was after all the work had been done. Things still happen. We still have slips, we still have washouts, so it's a constant piece of work to maintain these trails, but we totally believe it's worth it in terms of its community and economic development. A few years ago, the Rails-to-Trails Conservancy, as Kelly said, has started to change its thinking from working on individual trails to thinking in terms of trail systems. And that's what we're here about today, is helping to build a trail system. This trail system is over 1,500 miles long, this one in this map right here, and we're this part right here. That's a massive trail system. It's only about 52% completed. There's about 8 different corridors working on that. P2P is one of those 8 corridors. Of all of those 8 corridors, we are the closest to being done. Of the mileage that's between Parkersburg and the state line, we only have we had coming into this project a couple of years ago about 24 miles to finish. We've basically reached agreement on over 9 of those 24 miles in the last 18 months to 2 years. Progress is coming. We're still working on some other acquisitions. We've negotiated with CSX to acquire a total of 11 parcels on the P2P corridor. All of those appraisals have been done. CSX is willing to sell all 11. These are important small steps to close these gaps. I want to stress that it's not all RTC. This is really about the local trail partners who have their displays out on those tables out in the hallway. Those local folks are making it happen. They're the ones that really deserve the credit for helping close these gaps, for getting their community excited about this work, and for maintaining the trails and having events on the trails that make them so vital. So we are the closest to being complete, and we are now setting goals with this meeting that we're not entirely comfortable with. We are saying to you, we are going public, that we are going to complete the P2P corridor in West Virginia in the next decade. We are saying that we are going to make sure that P2P is the first IHTC corridor completed in the entire system. We got some work to do. You're here because we need to broaden the network of people that we're reaching out to. We've built local trail groups and supported local trail groups. We've made connections with CSX and the Comores Company. And now we're reaching out to our decision makers, our elected officials, our agency heads, and saying, you need to be a part of this game, not a passive part, but an active part of this game. So that's why you're here today. We'll hear some more about that a little later on. All right, with that, let's dive in a little bit to the feasibility study, and I'm going to turn it over to Kevin or back to Kelly or however you want to handle this.
Sure. Thank you, Kent. So a nice reflection, and we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into the study and give you a preview of its contents and a better understanding of kind of how it will be used to as a planning tool to get us there in the next decade. So I'd like to introduce Kevin Belanger. He's a trail planner with Rails-to-Trails Conservancy in our DC office. And Kevin and I are very proud of ourselves because we feel like we wrote a book. And Kevin did the bulk of this work. The section called the segment analysis that outlines step by step what needs to happen to complete this trail. So Kevin's going to give you a closer look now.
Thank you. Great, thank you, Kelly. I am really excited to be here today. This is one step in a long process, but it's a really exciting step. I've been with Rails-to-Trails for about 1.5 years now, and this is the first big project I've worked on, and I've gotten to come to West Virginia now 5 times to work on this project. I've only been here a couple of times in my life, and I can say that I really am excited about this project. I've had a great time getting to meet everybody, to get to explore the open trails and the gaps in the trail. 2 specific things. I really think that this project could be transformational for the small things, for the beauty in the trees and the curves, but also the rivers that we cross. We'll have to build several large bridges that if we do this correctly, they could be beautiful, iconic bridges If you've ever seen the High Trestle Trail Bridge in Iowa, I was just there a few weeks ago. If you haven't, check out a picture of that. It is beautiful. We can do something like that here and make this trail iconic. Otherwise, I've also gotten to spend time in small places like Shinston. I stayed at the Gillum House Bed and Breakfast there a few months ago, and it's right along where the trail will be. And I think that as a millennial living in the city, I live in DC, who likes to get outside, and I don't have a lot of opportunities to do so, if I rode the trail and happened to pass through this town of Shinston that I would never have known about, it's really beautiful, and I think that there's a lot that can happen there. So I've had a lot of fun doing this project. Just because this feasibility study exists does not mean that this project is going to get built immediately. We have a lot of work to do. This is one step in the planning process to complete this project. As the project progresses, portions of this will be acquired, will be designed, will be built. We need everyone's help through that step. We need everyone as a team on this. And we need to make sure that in every step of this process, we're bringing in the public, we're bringing in the stakeholders, we're bringing in adjacent landowners who may not know what this project could do, may have concerns that we need to guide them through this process with us on this. So this study can be used in a few ways. Obviously, as Kelly said, we don't want it to just sit on a shelf. We think that this document can be used three main ways. One, as an attachment in competitive grant applications. This looks really good. It looks like a polished document. And it looks like we did a lot of work together, because we did. So using that in these grant applications to get money from the state, from federal, from private donors, this is a really good use for that. Also, this includes planning level cost estimates and designs for some of the sections. So we can use that to say, if we do more of a bare bones effort, it might cost this much. If we go for the world-class trail facilities, it would be this much. So that's good to have in here. The last thing, and really the most important thing, is in here, especially getting to page 75, the Getting There section. It gives specific tasks to individuals and to groups to show us how we can get there with everyone as a team on this. So as Kent said, we've got about 24 miles of gaps left in this system. And instead of walking you through the segment analysis, which is a really wonky piece in here, which I recommend several people to do or come talk to me afterwards, I wanted to show you this story map we put together. The story map is basically just telling a story using maps. So I'm glad to talk with individuals about sharing this later, but I wanted to show you specifically, you can see the P2P here. The yellow are open trails. The yellow dashed with the red background are gaps in the network. We have 4 of those, and I'll just walk you through the highlights, I think, of each one real quick. After you get through the Mon River Trails and the Mick Trail, you get to Fairmont. Fairmont is exciting because it goes right through town. You can see this gap here crossing that's the Mon River there, correct? Yeah. So we'll go through town all the way into Palatine Park, which I think Fairmont has done a great job in building that up as a beautiful park, and this trail cutting right through it will make it even more prominent. You can tell we have a lot of options to get through town. We're not sure exactly which way, but working with the city and the landowners there, figuring out exactly how to get through town. The most exciting thing in my mind in Fairmont is the crossing of the river, specifically using, you can see on there, in the middle of the river, there's the old abutments for the old low-level bridge, or the Nickel Bridge, I believe. I've been told they're both called that way. That's going to be really exciting if we can get that built through there. We have an on-street option across the Jefferson Street Bridge, but we shouldn't settle for that. That, I think, is the last resort. Building the new bridge through there will be really, really cool through Fairmont. In the Shinston to Spelter Gap, as we load that up here, as I was saying, cutting through the town of Shinston, we did cut out through this bend in the river is the power plant. Decided maybe routing the trail next to the power plant might not be the best thing to do there. So we actually get to cut through a little more of town that way. I think it'll be beautiful going along the river there as well. Into Clarksburg, we've got a great way to get through town, specifically crossing the West Fork River here. Let me guide you there using the pathway. We're partnering with the Northern Brownfields Assistance Center on this. We have a few folks from there today. They did some renderings of what this could look like, what a bridge crossing the West Fork River could look like. That's really exciting. You'll see that in the report if you get a copy of it, or go to our website, rails-to-trails.org/P2P. There's a downloadable PDF copy there. That website is also in the executive summary in all of your packets today. I think that bridge will be really exciting to cut through town and connect to the North Bend, which doesn't really start or end in a city, where we can get it now to go into Clarksburg and to go into Parkersburg to get people using that more. And the last section is Parkersburg. They have already got some trail heading into the river, the Ohio River there, but yeah, we've been working with CSX to acquire several miles of property through there, finally connecting into the North Bend Rail Trail and connecting into some of their parks. They have Corning Park and Point Park. They're really beautiful. I can't wait to ride this trail myself. Hopefully it's in the near future and I can take my nieces and nephews and kids out there. Excited about it. So in conclusion, there's a lot that we have left to do. There's a lot of complex things, as I said, river crossings, places where we're adjacent to active rail lines, etc. But with a coordinated effort and everyone's support, I think this really can get built within the next 10 years. So thank you.